Over the last 4 years, we have used a lot of paid ads and paid advertising to grow our business. We've actually focused more on paid ads than we have organically. I think you need both. So, this podcast isn't to say that you should be focusing on ads over organic or organic over ads. You actually need both. But I do believe that ads are a great way to scale your business faster than organic. Again, you need both, but you can get faster results with paid ads if you know what you're doing. Over the past 3 years, we spent over $1.1 million in ads and have learned a ton of great lessons. And so this episode is dedicated to teaching you and breaking down what those lessons are to hopefully help you improve your ad game. So if you're interested, well, keep on listening. Hi, I'm Brandon Lucero, and you're about to experience the new way to thrive in business, entrepreneurship, and life by leaning into who you are, what you love, and standing up for what you want to create. Get ready, because this is where we go against the grain, say no to outdated society norms, and we say yes to change in order to create a happier, more fulfilled world. Welcome to the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast. Hello and welcome back to another episode of the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast. Today we're going to be talking about ads and money and how to make money from ads. In fact, I didn't realize how much money we had spent on ads, and I just kind of pulled up our stats a couple of weeks ago just to look at like how much did we spend and what data can we pull from our ads and what do our ads tell you. And we had our NGM live event. So it's a big event we do with all of our students once a year. It's a 3-day event. We bring in guest speakers, we do workshops, we do talks and all of that stuff. And one of our guests was Liz Melville, who runs ads for people like James Wedmore and Jim Fortin. And she used to run ads for like Jill and Josh Stanton and a lot of big names out there. And she pulled up these stats in her own campaigns and things that she was running about how many ads she's been running, how many of them were effective, and just pulled in a lot of data. And it got me thinking like, well, what does our data look like? And so it was really interesting going through our data. And I think Facebook only let us go back like 2.5 to 3 years. And we spent 1.1 million in ads. And so something that was really interesting is last year, so 2021, I think we spent close to like $700,000 in ads. And I think we overspent. And so we spent maybe, I don't know, 400,000 or 500,000 this year. And we've produced almost the same amount of revenue, I think, maybe a little bit less. But the point is that our ads were a lot more effective this year. And what I've realized is they've just become more and more effective over the years. Even with the iOS 14, even with all these issues that are coming up and everything going on, our ads are becoming more and more effective. And so there's a couple lessons that I wanted to go through and teach you guys on this episode. I just want to share our knowledge with you from what we've been seeing. And so that's what this episode is all about. And so I'm just going to hop right into it because there are a decent amount of lessons. I think I might have like 6 to 8 of them here. I have them written down on my phone. So if you're watching YouTube and you keep seeing me stare down at my phone, well, that's the reason why. So let's go through some of the stats here. Some of you, if you guys are students and you watched our 3-day live event, you probably already know some of these numbers and stats. I'm just going to go through them again because I think it's pretty important. So what we've realized is that in 2019, the team ran 2,200 different ads. Now, this, just to clarify, this doesn't mean 2,200 different creatives with different copy. This means through-play campaigns, conversion ads. Anytime we duplicate an ad, it counts it as another ad. So how many ads in total did we actually run? I'm not too sure, but the fact of the matter is that there was 22 in our ad manager. There's 2,200 ads that we ran in 2019. Okay, so there's 2,200 ads. Most of them are conversion ads. Now, when we went through and we looked at like what are the most effective ads in here, we started to get a number of how many ads were actually effective, and the number is 15%. So we produced 2,200 ads, and by the way, we spent a lot. We probably spent more time with our content team, so like me, Matt, and our editors, editing ads than we did on our actual content. So like our content that went on YouTube and Instagram, we probably spent more time on ads back then than we did actual content. I mean, we basically grew our business mostly through ads. And we've been able to reach a lot of people, like millions and millions of people through using ads. And so 15% of our ads were effective in 2019. So then we looked at the stats from 2022. So we looked at the stats this year. And this year we've run 460 ads. So we've run a lot less ads this year than we did in 2019. But here's what's really interesting is that out of the 460 ads that we ran, 25% of them were effective. So our effective rate has gone up by a lot. So 1 in 4 ads that we put out, we would consider effective and working. Now that's pretty good. I mean, that's really good. And what I want you to learn, the first lesson here is that when we look back in 2019, we were doing so much testing. We were testing everything. We were testing, because that's when we just started the Video 4X effect. I think we started the Video 4X effect like halfway through 2018. And we got really serious about it and started running a ton of ads in 2019. And that's when we really started like blowing it up. Now, the major lesson here is that we had to test. We had to test the pain points. We had to test the offer. We had to test the messaging. We had to test all the different things, the creatives. We had to like figure out, how do we sell this thing? And so there was so much testing that was involved in that, which is probably why we did 2,200 different ads, because we were testing everything. I think we would have like 30 or 40 ads sometimes for a single campaign. We were just producing ads and ads and ads and ads and ads and ads. And we were testing copy, testing this, testing that, seeing what worked, seeing what didn't work, what worked. And we would just go through this process. And we were just ourselves trying to understand, what is this offer? What does it really do? Who are we really going after? And so I think what happens with a lot of people when they hear ads is they think like, I can just do 1 or 2 ads and I already know what my offer is. But you have to understand, I wasn't trying to necessarily even figure out what my offer was. I was trying to figure out what positioning is going to work for this offer in the marketplace. What headline is going to work? What thought reversal is going to work? What angle is going to work? And you probably, if you're listening to the podcast, you've probably heard me talk about the Thigh Master. And the Thigh Master was originally a physical therapy tool. And it was designed to, some muscle on the inside of your leg or whatever in your thigh. And then they repositioned it as the Thigh Master to help, get a bigger butt and all of this stuff. And it blew up. And so what they really did, if we look beneath the surface, is they took the same product and they just figured out a different problem to solve with that one product. And so what I was doing back then was looking at like, what problems does this solve? And so I actually went back in 2019 and I started looking through a lot of the ads that we were running back then. And they were all really focused on problems, what we were testing back then. And by the way, I didn't really know what I was doing back then. I was just kind of looking at like, hey, this ad that this one person did made me want to click on it. So why don't I replicate that framework that they used into this? Or why don't I create a framework based off of what they did and I'll use it into my stuff? And so what I realized back then was the 15% of ads that were really effective were actually focusing on 1 or 2 very specific problems that people had. I wasn't focused on the solution. I wasn't focused necessarily on the benefits. My ads back then that were working showed a very good understanding of what that person was going through, what they literally were struggling with, and explaining why that was happening and that I can fix it. And it was very interesting because that's how some of our most effective ads today still work. And back then I didn't know what I was doing. Again, we were just testing and I was figuring things out. So what was really interesting was back in 2019, we were selling the Video 4X effect. And the Video 4X effect was not a messaging program. It was a program designed to show you how to get video working inside of your business and how to create like workflows and things like that. What I didn't realize back then with those 2,200 ads is that I was testing how to sell that product, but what I was learning was messaging. And a lot of the things that were working back then that I didn't even realize I was doing back then is what I teach now when it comes to messaging. So when we built the Video 4X effect up to a multi-million-dollar program, I was learning all of the messaging that I now teach, which was I didn't realize any of that because I was looking back at some of these ads. I'm like, oh my God, I used the list method right there. Or I got so specific right there. Or, oh my God, I still use this one line today. And I didn't even realize I still use this one line. And so back then 2019 was just this giant field or experience of just testing and testing and testing. So now in 2022, what we've realized is now, because we're so tuned into what are the problems, what are the pain points, how do we communicate this, what is the offer, what is going to make it sell, that we can do less ads and make them more effective. And so that's why this year we've only done 460 ads, but 25% were effective, is because we've fine-tuned it over the years. Now, 25% effective rate, I think, is a pretty good effective rate. So what I want you to pick up on this is that also means that, 25% is good. That also means that 75% of our ads didn't work. They didn't convert. 75%. One of the biggest pieces of advice that I give people all the time is when they want to start running ads is that you need multiple ads. You can't create 1, 2, or 3 ads and put them out there and then hope that they're going to convert. And then if they don't convert, then all of a sudden say, this product doesn't work, or this funnel doesn't work, or this offer doesn't work. Or no, sometimes you never know why. You never know why. You never know what's going to hit. You never know what's going to hit and what's not. I mean, it's basically just a giant test, but let's look at the statistics of when we have a 25% effective rate, which is really good. That means 1 out of every 4 ads for us is going to work. Back in 2019, that means 85% of our ads just won't work. Doesn't mean the offer wasn't good. It didn't mean that our ad strategy didn't work. It didn't mean that our targeting was necessarily off. It meant that 85% of our ads we just know aren't going to work. So if we know that if 85% of our ads aren't going to work, we need to have at least 7 to 8 ads out there to get one winner. And you have to remember, back in 2019, we also had an agency doing this, so we knew what we were doing. I would say that if most new people out there just running ads, I would say just expect that 5 to 10% of your ads are going to work. And that means you're going to need 10 to 20 different variations of ads in order to get one that's going to work. I don't think a lot of people realize this. After spending $1.1 million in ads and actually working with a lot of students and having an agency, and by the way, the $1.1 million in ads is just in our own brand. That doesn't include any of the ad spend that we did with our clients when we had our agency. If we add all that in, it's in millions and millions and multi-millions of dollars. Okay. And so that we would carry the same philosophy even when we worked with our 7-figure clients. So when you go to create ads, I mean, you're going to want a minimum of 10 ads, 10 different creatives, and maybe 3 to 4 different variations of copy being mixed in with those 10 different creatives. And hopefully you'll get one that works. Now, with that being said, the next lesson we learned is that you want to test everything before running the ads. Look at your content as a breeding ground or a testing ground or a science experiment to figure out what's going to work in your webinars and what's going to work in your sales mechanisms, what's going to work in your ads. I would never go and run a campaign or an ad just guessing and hoping that I'm going to just find something that works. I want to know what's going to work. And what happened in 2022, when we went to that 25% effective rate, we just paid attention to what was working in our content. What emails had the best open rates? What content gets the most shares? What themes are really working? What problems are people really resonating with? I would just go through this whole process of testing, paying attention to what worked. And the reason why we do this is I don't like relying on survey results. I don't like, necessarily even just listening to what people say and writing down the words that they say. Although that can help, that's not the end all be all. What I looking for is behavior, and behavior doesn't lie. And so the way I like to explain this is when you ask a kid what they want for their birthday or something, and then you get it for them and all they do is play with the box, the behavior shows you that they wanted a box, but really what the behavior is showing you is like, what they do with the box. If they wanted to build a fort, then they really want it to be like, be creative and go build something is really what they wanted. And so I like the quote from Henry Ford where he says, if I asked people what they wanted, they would have told me faster horses. And so if we look at what they really wanted, they didn't want faster horses. They just wanted to go faster. And so if you looked at people's behavior of what they were trying to do is they're trying to go faster. When you look at a kid, they're trying to do something else, not necessarily the toy. And so the behavior doesn't lie because 95% of people's behavior is subconsciously driven. So I look at, and you do the same thing, by the way. When you scroll Facebook or Instagram and a piece of content comes across your feed, you watch it automatically for some reason without thinking about it. Your behavior shows you there's something in that video that either the music, the visual, or the audio, something captured your attention. The words maybe captured the title, captured your attention, and you watched it and you didn't think about it. You just did it. And so what I want to look at is, what is my audience just doing? What are they just watching? What are they just clicking on? What are they just doing and paying attention to without thinking about it? And I'm going to use the same stuff in my ads. But the only way that we can do that is through testing, putting out more content, even taking your content and running through play campaigns with ads and testing, and looking at the behavior. What are people commenting on? What are they sharing? What are they liking? What are they paying attention to? What are they clicking on? And then we carry a lot of that into our campaigns. So with that being said, that's number 2, is just make sure you test everything, and to even test before you run an ad. So if you're curious about how an ad's going to do, just run it as a through play campaign and run a couple of them. Maybe they're video ad. If they're video ads, you can do that and just see which one gets the best watch time. And then that's going to be like, okay, cool. This is a clear winner. Maybe you have 3 video ads and they're both 60 seconds long and you run them as through play campaigns with no call to action or anything. You just want to see which one gets the best watch time. And 2 of them get a 30-second average watch time. The other one gets a 2-second average watch time. Like, don't even run the one that got a 2-second watch time. And that process is going to cost you like $20 to figure out that information. And so if you don't know what through play campaigns are, if you're a student, we have all the training inside the program, or you can go in the Facebook group and ask me. But if you're not a student, you can just go to YouTube and type in through play campaigns. But you guys can test the stuff before you run ads. And so this is one of the reasons why our effective rate started to go up, is because we just test everything. I'm not going to leave it up to guessing. Obviously some of it's going to be guessing, but I want to minimize the amount of guessing that I'm actually doing. Now, this moves me to the next point, number 3, which is to understand the funnel first. So what I like to do is I'm telling you guys to pay attention to your content when it comes to ads, but really what we need to do first is test our content, which part of our content gets the best view rates and stuff like that, watch time, stuff like that, to determine what our launch is even going to be about. What's our webinar going to be about? Our challenge, our video series, the thing that someone's opting in for. What is that topic going to be about? We actually need to figure that out first before we even create ads. And I think a lot of people have this backwards a little bit, where they just kind of create the ads based off of benefits that they know they can bring someone, but they're not ads based off of a very specific problem that your webinar or funnel is focused on. So let me give you an example here. The way most people go about this is, I'm going to use myself as an example. They go like, what do I do? What do I teach? For me, that would be messaging, right? So they would be like, oh, I know, I teach messaging. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a webinar called How to Have Really Impactful Messaging. And they go, okay, great. And then they're like, I'm going to teach everything that I know about messaging and I'm going to help people create a big impact with messaging. That's what my webinar is going to be on. Then they go to create ads and they're like, oh, okay, how do I bring people in? Okay, well, they're going to generate more sales. They're going to get more views on the content. They're going to have clarity. So I'm going to talk about that in my ad. Hey, do you want more clarity in your messaging? Do you want to improve your messaging? Do you want to make more sales? Click here and register for our free webinar. And the problem with that is it's all solution focused and it's benefit focused. What the biggest shift that we've made is making everything off of one specific topic and usually problem focused. So what I look at is, okay, yes, I teach messaging, but when people how do I know when someone has a problem with messaging? And how will they know when they have a problem with messaging? I'm like, okay, well, some of the problems that a lot of people have is that their webinars aren't effective. Their content's not effective. They're producing a lot of content. Nothing is getting seen. They feel like they're delivering gold, but no one seems to notice that it's gold. They put a lot of effort and time into their content and it doesn't seem to get the views that they deserve. I'm like, okay, these are all symptoms that come up when your messaging's not working. So then I test those things. I test those problems. I say, okay, they don't have effective content. So I'm going to put out a piece of content called how to create effective content. Put another one out, how to create content, how to create really effective content, or how to deliver gold and have your audience know it's gold, stuff like that. I'm going to start creating like content based off of these problems. And so what I've done is we've done that. And what I've realized is one of the titles that we've used for a really long time is how to create effective content without using how-to content. Because that's the biggest problem is that we discovered is that people are doing how-to content and it's filled with great information, but they're not getting any sales or traction. And what they want is they want effective content. And so again, that all stemmed from a problem. So then I'm going to make my webinar around that one problem. Now, the reason why this is great and the reason why we should do this is because we get to dive a little bit deeper into one specific problem, one specific solution, but it's only going to be a sliver of what we do. So when we get to the offer, it's like, okay, cool. We talked about effective content and we only talked about one style of effective content, but we have a whole program that goes through everything else. All these other things that you're going to deal with, here it is. So it allows me to stay very granular on one specific problem. But here's where the ads come in. Is what I do is when I have that one topic, that one webinar figured out, I looked at people's behavior. What are they showing me that they want? I'm going to create a webinar on it. How do I now create the ads? And I go, okay, great. My ads are not going to talk about messaging. They're going to talk about effective content. They're going to talk about why you're stuck. They're going to talk about why how-to content is keeping you stuck. Why am I going to do that? Because it's now aligned with my webinar. And my webinar was based off of people's behavior. So let me break this down for you guys. When you want effective ads, they have to be focused off of problems. And I'll explain this a little bit deeper here in a second. When they're based off, when your whole webinar sales funnel is based off the biggest problem that you solve for people, it allows you to stay focused on one thing. Once that one thing is figured out, we can now go to our ads and we can now say our ads are going to be focused on this one specific thing. When we focus on one specific thing, we become hyper relevant to someone's specific problem. Also, the greatest thing about this is that we're attracting people from our ads based on problems that we're going to solve in the webinar, which means this is going to be the most highly qualified audience that you'll ever have. If your ads are focused off of a very specific problem that someone is having, the only people that are going to click and register are the people with that problem. And I'm telling you that if someone is clicking on that ad because you said you're having this problem, I know how to fix it, and they go through all the work and put in the energy to opt in and to register and to show up, that also shows you that they're an action taker. It also shows you that they're willing to take actions to solve the problem. So not only are you going to get more opt-ins because you're more relevant to them, but you're likely going to get better conversions as long as your webinar or whatever goes really well, because these people are now super qualified and demonstrating that they're willing to do something to fix the problem. And so when we focus all on solutions and benefits, it's more people that are like, yeah, I guess I want that. Sure, I want that. But when we go the route of problems, people go like, oh my God, I am suffering from that. I am doing that. That is my current situation. I don't want this current situation. The other way around, when you focus on benefits, people are like, oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I guess I kind of want that. So you have a much different mindset of people coming into your funnel when we focus on the problems. So again, just to reiterate, if you want effective ads, you have to understand the funnel first. But in order to understand the funnel, you need to understand the problems and you need to understand the behaviors that people are showing you through your content. If people are showing you in your content that they love this one topic, then do that one topic more. Give them more of it and then create ads off of that. Okay, so you have to understand the funnel first. The next one, this is a philosophy that I've had for a really long time. Don't spend more money than you're willing to lose. Chances are you will likely lose money in the beginning. And you have to understand that. You have to come to terms with that. If you want to spend $20,000 on a launch, then just kiss that $20,000 goodbye. That's the mindset you need to have because, chances are you'll probably lose it, at least in the beginning. And so even now, anytime I go into a launch, when we spend like $200,000 in ads, I basically go in going like, all right, if I lose this, I'm good. We're fine. And so you can get into a lot of trouble if you don't have that mindset. All right, next one. Because we had a 25% effective rate, you have to understand that it just takes one ad to change your entire launch. And in our last launch in August, we had, what was it? I think it was like 24, 25, maybe even $26 leads coming in. And we were spending a good amount of money. I mean, I think at one point we were spending $5 to 10 grand a day or something like that. And our leads were at like $25. And I just said that, that was the highest we've ever seen on any launch. And I think a lot of people would look at that and go like, oh, the iOS 14 or, oh, ads just aren't effective anymore. Or, there's oversaturation now, or Facebook ads are dead. It's like, no, they're not. It's just that something happened inside of your ads and you aren't communicating it correctly, or I don't know, whatever it is. So I went into our ads and I said, I'm going to take a different approach here. I'm going to try different problems. I'm going to try a different way of explaining these problems. And I'm going to try a different creative, a very simple creative. The creative is going to basically ask a problem that we're going to solve on the webinar. And it was something like, I forget what it was, but it was something like, are you struggling to communicate in a way your audience understands? ? And it was a white image with black text. And then I had copy in there that basically said, if you're struggling with this, this, and this, I know you're likely doing this, this, and this. And the reason why it doesn't work is this, this, and this. Let's look at this person and this person and this person. They're not, it was like Gary Vaynerchuk, Grant Cardone, Brene Brown. They're not doing any of the stuff you're doing, but getting these huge results. I'm going to show you how to fix all of that on this webinar. And then our leads went from like $25 down to $11, literally overnight. So we cut it more in half. Like it was like a 60 or 70% discount now on our leads, which means that if I was still doing $25 leads, I basically would have had to spend almost more than double what I was spending to get the same amount of leads. So all it took was one ad. And I think we may have done like 15 different ads, but then all it took was ad number 16 to drop it to $11 leads. And it did really, really well. Another thing we did is we also went back to ads that had been working for the last year and a half and tested those, even though they weren't totally relevant. And we threw those in and those dropped it down. Those were converting at like $15 leads. And so we just started testing a lot of different things. And all it does is sometimes just takes one ad to fix everything. And this brings me to my next point. Next lesson we've learned is that sometimes old ads will work now. So if an old ad didn't work, like let's say you ran an ad 2 years ago and it just didn't work and you're kind of like, man, I really thought that was going to work. Test it again a year later, the next launch. Here's the reason why this is so important is that environments change. And when you create an ad and you plug it into an environment that is not ready for that ad or doesn't make sense quite yet, it's just not going to convert because it's not landing. But as the environment starts to change, that ad might actually start to become more effective. And you have to understand, you as an expert in your space, you're kind of a visionary. You see things differently. You're able to understand your industry a little bit better than the people that are all around you, right? Your audience. That's why they're following you. Sometimes we like to communicate a little too deep And our audience's awareness is just not ready for that yet, which means that ad's not going to be effective. But then the awareness level will change over time. So let me give you an example. When we first started teaching messaging 2 or 3 years ago, no one really knew that messaging was a big problem. People, the awareness level was like, at my content's not working, or my webinars aren't working, or I don't know why my content's not getting seen. I'm delivering gold. I'm delivering how-to educational videos filled with great information. I don't know why my stuff's not working. And it's like, well, you have a messaging problem. But if I would have said you had a messaging problem 3 years ago, people were like, what's messaging? I don't understand. I just want my videos to work. So what I had to do back then is I could not mention the word messaging inside of my ads. So if I created an ad 3 years ago that said, hey, are you struggling with messaging? People would just look past that and go like, nope. And that ad would not be very effective. But if I then back then, if 3 years ago said, is your content not converting or not getting any attention and you're delivering gold? Question mark. People are like, hell yeah, like that's my problem. And then what I would have to do is bridge or create a webinar that would bridge them to understanding messaging is the problem. And that's what we did when we first launched everything. But now people, the awareness level that messaging is a problem is pretty much there. Like almost everyone knows when they have a messaging problem. We've done a lot of work over the years to expose people to this idea of like, hey, it's not your content, it's your communication style, it's your messaging. And so now a lot of people are aware messaging is a problem. So if I took that ad from 3 years ago and said, hey, are you struggling with messaging? It now becomes a lot more effective because the environment that I'm operating in has shifted, evolved. It has evolved to now where that ad is more relevant. And so sometimes we get so caught up in our stuff that we out relevant ourselves, if that's even a word. We make it so our stuff's not relevant anymore. But that doesn't mean it's not going to work forever. So what we like to do sometimes is take old ads that I thought would have done really well and just test them again. And sometimes it's just even 6 months later and it works really well. And I believe this is also why ads just don't work forever, because when you find an ad that works, it works in the current environment. When that environment changes or evolves, then that ad becomes less relevant. Therefore, it doesn't work anymore or convert anymore. So we like to take old ads and test them from time to time. Okay, next lesson. Conversion objectives for us have worked so much better than lead form, especially when it comes to high quality leads and buyers. So if you don't understand what any of this means, don't worry about it. I'm sure your ad manager will, but convert for us, when we choose the objective of conversion, which means they see an ad, they click on that ad, they leave Instagram or Facebook and go to an opt-in page, and then they opt in on our opt-in page, those always produce way better buyers. The lead form ads are when you click on an ad, a lead form pops up, and then sometimes the information's auto-populated right there on Facebook. The lead forms will give you, from our experience, a lower cost per lead. But if you actually track how many of those leads turn into sales, they perform like dog poop. They just really do. And that's not just for us. That's between a lot of my friends' accounts as well. When you're spending like thousands of dollars a day, I mean, geez, like not even $1,000, like maybe like $100 a day or $50 a day. It's just lead form, from our experience, just don't convert. They're just crap leads. Again, this is not going to be a rule across the board. I do know there are probably some people out there that are like, lead forms work great for me. For us, they've just never worked great. And if I had to give a recommendation, I would say work with conversion ads. Okay, so let's talk about the next lesson. I don't even know what number we're on now, but let's talk about this next lesson. And I've kind of been hinting at this already, but what we have found is that the creatives are great. Creatives are great for stopping the scroll. Headlines are great because if the headline is catchy or whatever, it can get people to read the copy. But if your copy is really good, people are going to convert all day long. And I'm going to give my idea of when I say good copy, I'll give you my idea of what that is. Keep in mind the creative will help. For me, the creative is more of a scroll stopper. and a setup for the copy. Sometimes the creative itself, especially if you have a video ad, will get people to opt in, but the copy is really the key here. And so as you know, the ads should be focusing on one main problem, overarching problem that will be solved on the webinar. What I like to do is diagnose people. And it's the same thing a doctor does. When you go into a doctor's office, they're going to ask you what your symptoms are. Basically what they're asking you are what are the problems you're having? Then they diagnose you and tell you that you have X, Y, and Z, and that X, Y, and Z was caused likely by doing this and doing that, or having this or having that. They tell you why it was caused. And then they give you a prescription, which is the solution. And so what I like to do in my ads is that same process. So the reason why I like this is because it makes you super relevant to your audience. But the only way to do this is by getting very specific. So if I know that people are doing how-to content and they want effective content and they can't create effective content, I'm going to start creating 5 to 10 problems or symptoms that they're having that let them know that they are stuck, that this ad is relevant to them. So I'll say things like, if you're feeling like you post 3 or 4 times a week and you're not really getting any traction, even though you deliver gold, or you've been plateaued for 3 months or more in sales and audience growth, you have been trying to figure out how to get effective content, but you do everything all the gurus tell you to do and it's still not working, then I bet you're likely doing things like producing or having 70% of your content be how-to and educational content. You are likely focusing mostly on information in a way to give value. And so what I'm doing is I'm diagnosing. I'm saying, here's what your very specific problems are, and here's the actions you're doing that are causing those problems, just much like a doctor would. And so what starts to happen on a subconscious level is people go like, oh my God, they're talking about me. Like, that is me. How do they get inside of my head? Now, the only way to do this, the only way to do this is to really understand the problem that you're solving and really understand what people are actually doing to cause the problem. You can't get surface level or generalized. You have to be very specific, because the more specific you are, the more relevant you are. The more relevant you are, the more you demonstrate you have an understanding of their exact situation, which means their trust in you and your ability to fix the problem goes up. Now, the next thing I would do in the ads is I would then start to hint at a solution. So I would say, let's look at Grant Cardone. Let's look at Brene Brown. Let's look at this person and this person. And I would give these counterexamples, or you can go into a metaphor or a story or something like that. And I would say, this person is not doing all the things I listed above. This person's doing X, Y, and Z. Every single one of them is doing X, Y, and Z. And they're able to get these sorts of results. So again, I'm prescribing. Here's what you need to do. And then the prescription is, here's what you need to do. I'm going to show you how to do it. So register for this webinar. Here's how you go and do it. So that's one of the styles of ads that work very well for us, is we just diagnose people and show them and demonstrate that we have a very clear understanding of what's going on. And by the way, I'm not guessing at what's going on here. I know for a fact what's going on in their life. I know for a fact what problem they're doing. I know for a fact what they're doing to cause that problem. I know for a fact what they're doing to try to fix the problem that doesn't work. I know all of that stuff. And what happens is I get super relevant and people go like, oh my God, that's me. Or, oh my God, I never realized that before. Which moves me to my next style of copy, which is thought reversal. Thought reversals, when you have a good thought reversal, it just works really well. So when you're able to shift someone's perspective, those have also been our very top performing pieces of copy too. So, I might say something like, you are an unheard entrepreneur if most of your content's how-to educational, informational content. Now people will be like, oh my God, that's me, but no, he's wrong. And then I use like Gary Vaynerchuk as example, or I might say like, you never see encyclopedias at the top of best-selling charts, or I might say, let's look at TED Talk, great educational content that's entertaining, but never in the form of tutorials. I have all these like metaphors and analogies and counterexamples. People start going like, oh my God, he's right. Oh my God, he's right. Oh my God, he's right. And then we start to get people to opt in because they're now like, oh my God, I'm doing exactly what he said. I never realized it before. It kind of blew my mind. I'm ready for the webinar now. And so those two styles of copy have just done really, really well for us. So diagnosing and perspective shifting ads. And the last lesson that I'm going to leave you guys with is that leads can convert down the road. So I think a lot of times we will look at, our launches and be like, oh my God, I had 1,000 leads come in and I only had, 30, or let's just call it 30 sales. And I wasted all that money on all these leads. It's like, no, you actually, if you're converting between 1% to 5%, you're doing pretty good depending on the price of your program or product. But what I see is 970 people that still could potentially buy from you. And what we've seen is that sometimes people need to go through 2, 3, 4 launches or you need to present the offer to them 2 to 3, 4 times before they finally say yes. And so don't discount those leads, nurture those leads because they can convert to sales down the road. We've seen that happen over and over again. So those are our lessons from the last 3 years and spending in over $1.1 million in ads in our own brand. This has been one of the best ways that we've been able to grow and build even an organic audience. Every time we launch or spend a ton of money on ads, we incorporate our podcast episodes and our podcast episodes, our podcast gets a huge boost in downloads and then it stays there, which is really interesting. So when people opt in, we're like, hey, when getting ready for the webinar, like go watch this episode or listen to this episode on the podcast. It's going to fix this problem. And we just incorporate the podcast into our launches and anytime we do paid ads, and we just see massive growth in our podcast downloads. And then when the launch is done, those people stick around. They just stay there. And so our podcast growth is literally like a stair step. Every time we do a promotion, we just see massive growth. Then it kind of plateaus a little bit. There's a little bit of growth and then it takes off again. And then it keeps growing. And so for us, we have all these like added benefits. It's also been our number one list builder. So anytime we launch or do whatever, a promotion or something, we're always building our list, and it's been our number one list builder as well. So those are my lessons for you guys. Take them, use them, enjoy them. If you have any questions, let me know. You can always reach out on Instagram. If you're a student, just reach out in the Facebook groups. And if you enjoyed this episode, let me know by leaving us a review. If you want more episodes like this one, where it's more tactical and ad related, let me know. Leave us a comment, leave us a review. I would be so grateful for that. And I'll talk to you all in the next episode. Take care, everyone. Hey guys, thank you so much for checking out another episode of the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, go below, hit the subscribe button, and make sure you click on that bell icon and get notified every time we drop a new episode. Now, if you're looking for the show notes, we have them linked underneath this video, as well as our social media handles and some links to free training and offers that we drop from time to time to help you guys even further. So go check those out if you're interested. And thank you so much for tuning in to the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast.